A little over a year ago, I began replaying some of my favorite games. One series in particular grabbed my attention like it had a decade and a half ago: Dead Space. I played all 3 games plus Motive Studios' masterpiece, the Dead Space 1 remake. As good as the 3 original games are and as much as I love them, the Dead Space remake in particular hooked me more so than the original. Multiple playthroughs of that game only left me wanting more Dead Space. That series, to me, is perfect. A remake such as Dead Space can be amazing, but particularly painful, because there are 2 games that come after it. I realize that there will likely be no Dead Space 2 and 3 remakes. They may not need remakes, as many people, including myself, think that the second Dead Space is a masterpiece along with the first. The third one is up for debate, depending on what kind of games you like to play. Not every series can get the remake treatment like Resident Evil. Sadness came over me after completing the series again, realizing that there will never be another game like Dead Space. I wanted more. Just as I was scouring the internet for Dead Space content, I came across something that caught my attention. It was the trailer for CRONOS: The New Dawn. This was an announcement trailer, so there would be some waiting for about a year before the game came out. Extremely excited by this, I immediately sent the trailer to my brother, expressing my excitement. Some months later came gameplay trailers and extended gameplay previews. This game looked like it had everything I needed as a Dead Space fan. The armored protagonist, the ultra beefy and visceral punch and stomp mechanics, zero-G environment traversal, even a pistol reload animation strikingly similar to the plasma cutter in Dead Space. I could not wait for this game to come out. I counted the months, the weeks, the days, and the hours, impatiently waiting to get my sci-fi survival horror fix. CRONOS released on September 5th digitally. To my disappointment, I had to wait another 2 weeks until the 19th to get my hands on a physical copy, only growing my anticipation to play it. I was not to be disappointed by this game. I had already made up my mind that I was going to love it. Before you watch my review, just know that I'm someone who already loves this game before I even played it. Am I biased? Maybe. Am I also extremely easy to please? Absolutely. If you watch my review of the Silent Hill 2 remake, you already know that I'm a huge fan of Polish developer Bloober Team. Their brand new sci-fi survival horror IP, CRONOS: The New Dawn, exceeded my expectations and made me extremely happy to have the privilege to experience it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a survival horror masterpiece on our hands. CRONOS: The New Dawn takes place in the fictional city of New Dawn, based on the real city Nowa Huta in Krakow, Poland. We're set in the year 2035 in an alternate reality where humanity came to a brutal and nightmarish end in 1981 by way of a viral outbreak called The Change. With Bloober Team being Polish and many of its developers, even lead writer Grzegorz Lika, being from Nowa Huta, you could imagine what a personal labor of love this game was for them to make. I can't fathom how cool it must have been being able to develop a fictional world based on the place where I grew up. Being from Louisiana, I remember how cool it was playing The Parish and Left 4 Dead 2. Being able to develop a game where you grew up takes it to a whole nother level. The real city of Nowa Huta was built as a 20th century socialist utopia centered around the Lenin Steelworks factory. This is central to the story of CRONOS, as the change is thought to have started in the steelworks of New Dawn. We play as Traveler ND3576, a member of the Vocation. It's her job to travel back to the beginning of the change to gather human essences of people who might be useful in finding out how the change started. Let me start by saying I love the design of the Traveler. The bulbous helmet reminds me of a classic astronaut. We can't see inside the helmet, and through the game we never get to see what's under the suit. Nameless, faceless, and possessing a robotic and emotionless voice,
Traveler ND3576, initiating the travel lock.
she's a very enigmatic protagonist. Finding out who she is just as compelling as finding the source of the change itself. Many people express concerns that the Traveler's helmet looks a bit phallic because of the air intake in the front, but that doesn't really matter. You'll be able to unlock skins with different helmets as you play. Speaking of skins, the physical copy comes with a bonus skin, but the code you're supposed to redeem to get the skin doesn't work, for anyone. I was a little disappointed, but I have confidence that Bloober Team will address this and fix this issue in time. As soon as you enter the game, it's amazing to see how the developers use the COVID-19 global pandemic as an inspiration for the world building and progression of the disease in New Dawn. We can see notes in train cars limiting the number of passengers on board, newspapers where officials deny that this is a pandemic. I can remember the sentiments of people my age during COVID-19. Why is there a lockdown? If you're sick, just stay home. A sentiment that's even present here in CRONOS. Conspiracies about government control and warnings to not take a vaccine rushed and demanded by the government. The notes getting progressively grave and dire, leading to the eventual complete lockdown and martial law in New Dawn. No one gets in, no one gets out. 2035 New Dawn is in ruin. The symmetrical and brutalist architecture crumbling and being affected by gravitational oddities. Truly a sight to behold at the end of the tutorial. Most oddities play into environmental puzzles which you will have to manipulate to advance in the mostly linear level structure. You use a relic to restore the environment around you to the way it was in the past, moving giant rocks and fallen buildings out of your way. Sometimes before you do this, you'll have to stand on certain slabs of concrete, then manipulate the oddity. As the environment is restored, you ride it up or down like an elevator. A simple but creative step in these puzzles and something that I overlooked at first. These oddities also play a role in some boss fights with some conveniently placed gas cans and bottles. As you run for your life, you can restore these explosive cans and lure your target next to them for a huge damage. Even after the cans explode, they remain affected by the oddity, meaning that you can restore them as many times as you need to. Very video gamey, but an integral part of the combat encounters in CRONOS. The settings are pretty much what you might expect in a survival horror game. An abandoned apartment building, a hospital, a factory, and even a church with a spooky graveyard. The level's overgrown with pulsating, fleshy masses called biomass. While these settings are not all that original, it's the story that takes place in these settings that really sets CRONOS apart from its peers. In these levels, it's your goal to find rifts in time known as dive points created by travelers who precede you. When you enter these rifts, you're sent back in time to the same place. It's very cool to be able to explore these levels again and how they used to be before the change happened. You're looking for humans that may be useful to the collective. It's your goal to extract their essence and bring them back to the future and upload them to the collective. What's really cool about your human targets is that most of them are aware of who you are. They've seen the travelers before. They've seen your predecessors, calling them visitors or angels from heaven. Some even speculating that the travelers brought the change onto humanity. Most normal people think these people are crazy, and seeing these characters' astonishment upon seeing you really makes me think that this is probably how it would be to go back in time and interact with someone from the past. The voice and motion capture performances in this game are absolutely amazing. Every target and character feels like a real person who's been impacted greatly by the stress of the apocalypse. They're crazed, resistant, fanatical, and frantic. I can't give the actors and actresses enough credit for these Oscar-worthy performances. It seems very rare for me to see these kinds of performances in video games.
You mean the other traveler?
I am Sibbert. He said he'd heal us. I know a lot. I know the truth.
This game is very cinematic. Cutscenes feel like movies and they often exceed 5 minutes. I found myself so excited when the controls were taken away from me and the cutscenes began. Another cast of characters that are notable are the cats that still inhabit the future. I'm not sure why they are unaffected by the change, but they serve to show just a little bit of humanity in our traveler. She enjoys petting them, talking to them, and gives them each their own names. When you find and pet them, they drop energy cores to upgrade the traveler, as well as keys for locked doors and other useful items. They're then transported back to the hub world, the Terminal, this game's version of Firelink Shrine. They reside in their own little apartment where you can go back and pet them whenever you feel like it. Here in the Terminal is the Warden. He's an old, battle-damaged traveler that, quote, repairs things and keeps the terminal up and running. This is where you upload your essences from your phylactery to the collective. You're also able to communicate with them here. The terminal shuts down at some point in the game, and you're unable to upload essences anymore. The traveler can only carry 3 human essences in her phylactery, and as you find fallen travelers with essences remaining in their phylacteries, there comes a very hard choice to be made. You can choose to delete an essence to make room for a new one, or leave them as they are. These essences have different side stories and also give your traveler different abilities, like more firepower or melee attack power. Once you delete an essence, you are deleting someone's soul forever. If you do so, some of them are relieved in their final words. Others scream out in pain and cry that they aren't ready to go. If you played this game and chose to delete a certain essence that I won't spoil, you'll know how completely heart-wrenching this is. If you're a Dead Space or Resident Evil fan like myself, the gameplay here will fit like a glove for you. Sprinting is controlled by pushing down the left stick, which you know is a blessing if you play the game. I can't imagine having to hold down another button with another finger while running away from and fighting the orphans simultaneously. You'll be constantly on the move. There's a ground-shaking punch and stomp mechanic just like in Dead Space. I'm sad to say that they aren't nearly as powerful as they are in Dead Space, and are definitely not a viable option in combat. They're used more as a get off me button and used mainly to break boxes to gain access to resources. I'm also happy to report that the survival horror shimmy is back in CRONOS: The New Dawn. Turning and squeezing through cracks in the environment is a staple in modern survival horror. This can be very useful when you're trying to get away from enemies or setting up jump scares or gank squads of enemies. You'll also be locked into certain areas during combat encounters just like in Dead Space. While some may think that the enemies named orphans aren't very original, I think they suit this world just fine. What else were they supposed to look like? Once you've killed an enemy, it becomes biofuel for other enemies to then absorb. They become larger and stronger. Don't let them merge, being this game's version of cut off their limbs from Dead Space. A lot better than the menacing shoot the tentacles of 2022's survival horror masterpiece, The Callisto Protocol. After you kill enemies, it's in your best interest to use your torch to burn them, preventing other enemies to merge with them. When you deploy your torch, it also gives you iframes and stuns enemies, allowing you to get out of harm's way. This can be very useful in dire situations when you just don't have any shell patches to restore health. The enemies can be small and explosive, spit acid from range, armored and covered in what looks like concrete, and giant brutish orphans that will take your full arsenal to put down. Even orphans stuck to walls that catch you as you carelessly walk through doors or get careless not checking your surroundings when trying to break crates for resources. Much like the Guardians of Dead Space. It's especially important to know that when the orphans merge, they take on whatever ability the orphan that they're merging with has. So use that torch. You don't want to take on an armored brute orphan that can spit at you with no ammunition. Speaking of running out of ammo, the resources in this game are incredibly scarce. Probably the scarcest of any survival horror game that I've ever played. The orphans are usually very tanky, taking 2 or 3 charged shots to put down. I never felt powerful in this game. The power never shifts in favor of the player, and that's a hallmark of survival horror. CRONOS implements a crafting system where you can craft ammunition, health packs, explosives, and torch fuel. If you're in the middle of a fight and run out of all ammunition, this will happen to you. You can swiftly craft ammunition by holding the corresponding button on the D-pad of the weapon you wish to craft ammunition for. There's no grander feeling of relief than being backed into a corner while crafting ammo, reloading, and firing off a shot that ends the fight. There's also no automatic reloading. You'll have to do that manually, so tactically reloading whenever you can is best during combat encounters. While ammunition and resources are scarce, there's plenty of energy around, this game's form of currency. You can also use energy to purchase ammunition and resources from the shops in safe areas. There's also old pieces of tech lying around like military radios and gaming consoles that can be sold for energy. Bosses also drop a large amount of energy upon defeating them. There is a surprising amount of weapons at your disposal, from the basic pistol known as the sword, to powerful shotguns and carbines that shoot homing bullets. You can upgrade these weapons with energy at a very high amount. But the most important thing to upgrade, however, is the Traveler's Temporal Shell using energy cores. You'll need to beef up your defenses, and inventory is supremely important in this game. It always seems like you never have enough space to carry what you need. You'll often need to choose between carrying health or ammunition. I've seen many people online complaining about how scarce ammo actually is. It is very scarce. It's a survival horror game. My response to this is that you just suck. Go play COD or Madden. Just like in Dead Space, there's a zero gravity aspect to CRONOS. You can find a pair of gravity boots to partake in some pretty mind-bending environmental traversal mazes. The one in the steelworks in particular confused me, and I was flying around for about 15 minutes trying to find my way. As you approach dive points, the gravitational anomalies become stronger. Objects floating in the air usually signify a boss fight. A lot of boss fights in this game are similar to one another, but they only get harder and harder. I won't go too much into the boss fights, just know that they are stressful as can be, and you'll always be dreading having to go through them. The final boss in the culminating event is among the most stressful and difficult I've ever experienced in a survival horror game. Implementing every single aspect in the game from zero-G to time oddity manipulation, it truly is a final boss experience. CRONOS is absolutely not without its share of glitches. The immersion is broken slightly because of these sometimes. I was in the hospital level when I was bombarded by armored orphans and a brute orphan that got busy absorbing the bodies scattered in the hallway. I was low on ammunition and health and absolutely not ready for this fight. I ran, trying to find safety through a set of double doors. I noticed that they weren't following me to kill me as they normally would. I collected myself and made my way back to the fight to find the orphans just standing there. The brute stuck where he stood and the armored orphan stuck on top of a stretcher. I guess running through the doors confused the AI, making them freeze. They stood there and let me kill them. I could tell this part was supposed to be very difficult, and honestly, as much as this took away from the immersion and atmosphere, I was grateful it happened. Another glitch I encountered was in the tram station B after activating the second generator. There's a boss fight here, and I was doing my rounds and got stuck on a corner, unable to move until the boss got a free hit on me. This was annoying at worst, but I actually was able to defeat the boss surprisingly on the attempt that this happened after dying when it didn't happen the first time. A few texture pop-ins and frame rate stutters in performance mode on the base model PS5, but other than that, this game is beautiful and will run flawlessly for you. While this game is not as scary as the Silent Hill 2 remake, it will definitely have you slowly peeking around corners and stopping on a dime when you hear distant screams and objects being kicked around near you. The scariest part of the game definitely being its jump scares, maneuvering through an area you thought you cleared, searching rooms for resources when you're greeted by an orphan faster than you can blink your eyes. Sometimes the environment produces more orphans to surprise you, and the ones you think are dead as you pass them are always certainly not. You can always make sure they're dead with the torch, and sometimes this only awakens them, sending you running the other direction. The echoing creaks of buildings and moans of the infected are supremely creepy, and a lot of times you won't even want to run through the environments for fear of awakening something that you're not even sure is there, opting for a slow stroll instead. The traveler also making note of when she's not alone.
Something is here. The place is already overrun. I need to get to the target immediately.
Bloober Team's CRONOS: The New Dawn is my game of the year. To me, this game is perfect and everything I wanted as a sci-fi survival horror fan. CRONOS is bleeding with its Dead Space influence, but in my opinion, its story blows Dead Space out of the water. This is by no means an insult to the classic Dead Space. CRONOS is just that good. The wait was excruciating for me, and even more excruciating after I wasn't able to play it the day it was released. I love being able to own my games and put them on a shelf, so I had to wait 2 weeks longer as I previously mentioned. I can honestly say that the first game in this brand new IP is one of my favorite games of all time. I've done 2 full playthroughs already, and I can tell you that there will be plenty more. I can't wait to see what Bloober Team has in store for us in the future with CRONOS. Play this game immediately, specifically if you love Dead Space. I can't express how much I've enjoyed and appreciate this game. You would think Bloober Team is paying me. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been a Two Buns Review.